The English Renaissance was an era of cultural revival and poetic evolution, starting in the late 15th century and spilling into the revolutionary years of the 17th century.
Humanism and individual achievement became very popular during the Renaissance in response to the works of the medieval period. The Renaissance was focused on individual achievement, experience, and artistic expression. Beauty also shifted from being divine harmony to being a feeling and a step towards a higher consciousness. Different aspects of nature were used as a symbolism for love, lust, wealth, fertility, and well-being.
From the 11th through the 13th century, the Crusades caused different philosophies and ideas to spread between cultures, in between all the murder. Later, during the Middle Ages, the Black Death killed a bunch of people, which made them question religion and start to look for answers other than it was just God's will. The Renaissance was really kicked off with the rediscovery of Greek and Roman literature, most notably Petrarch rediscovering Cicero. The old-new idea spread rapidly throughout Europe when Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing press in the mid-1400s. As new philosophies spread, art also shifted. Inspiration was taken from everyday life instead of religion. For example, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa.
The Renaissance is the time period that comes after the Middle Ages, a transition from a medieval to modern world. This period was able to come about thanks to the invention of the printing press, which allowed pamphlets and newspapers containing the revolutionary ideas of the Renaissance to spread. Compared to the Middle Ages, which were heavily influenced by the church and community, the Renaissance strayed away from that and focused more on the state and overall thinking for themselves. Things from art and literature shifted from religion-based works to incorporating different perspectives in those arts and a wider range of subjects in their books that would have been unusual to find in the medieval time period. Those impactful historical events, like the Black Death, are some of the biggest influences that started Renaissance thinking, because it pushed people to question their beliefs in God. Many believed the plague was God's punishment for their sins. However, no amount of praying to him was saving them from the effects of the Black Death, leading to the lack of confidence in the church. This event was a turning point where people's minds started shifting away from community-based beliefs to individual thinking.
I read The Flea by John Donne, in which he basically tries to convince a girl to have sex with him because their blood is already joined in a flea, so they might as well. Right off the bat, this is very different from medieval literature because it revolves around sex, which was taboo to talk about back then. Donne also makes an appeal to logic, saying, "And in this flea our two bloods mingled be. Thou knows that this cannot be said, a sin nor shame nor loss of maidenhead, to explain why having sex isn't such a big deal." This poem revolves around the pleasure of two individuals. It has nothing to do with the greater good or a higher calling. It is simply humanistic individualism.
Paradise Lost is an epic poem written in blank verse by the 17th century English poet John Milton. The first version, which was published in 1667, consists of over 10 books with 10,000 lines of verse. The biblical tale of the fallen creation of man is recreated in Paradise Lost, beginning with the first fall, that of a group of rebel angels from heaven. Satan, one of God's most beloved and powerful angels, becomes enraged when God makes the sun and appoints him as leader. Satan seeks to take over the human race and ruin God's greatest creation over the first several books. After learning of Adam and Eve's creation, Satan becomes envious and tempts them to eat the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge. With humanity defeated, Satan returns to hell to celebrate his victory. When he concludes his victory speech, he and all of his supporters transform into snakes with no limbs or the capacity to talk. God had sent the archangel Michael to accompany Adam and Eve out of paradise. Before banishing them, Michael reveals Adam the future, the events that would occur as a result of the original sin. The vision depicts all that will happen to humanity, from Cain and Abel through the redemption of sin via Jesus Christ. Adam and Eve depart paradise with mixed feelings of loss and optimism. The quest for knowledge is the first and most visible aspect of the Renaissance. People, especially authors, had satisfied their thirst for knowledge and worked tirelessly to learn more and more about it. For example, when Satan tried to get Eve to eat from the tree because it would give her more knowledge. Another aspect of the Renaissance is the rebirth of Greek mythology. Milton was not just a devout man himself, but he also studied Greek mythology on the side. In his epic poem, he did the same. Many Greek gods are referenced in Paradise Lost. For example, in lines 439 through 441 in Book 11, quote, "Spot more delicious than those gardens feigned or of revived Adonis, or renowned Alcinous, host of old Laertes' son." In the Odyssey, Odysseus goes to King Alcinous' garden disguised as someone other than himself. Odysseus, just like Satan, travels in secrecy, and it isn't until the very end of the book that his actual nature is revealed. The extreme lust for power is also another glaring aspect of the Renaissance. God possessed the true authority, but Satan desired the same. He was determined to get it by any means necessary, even if it means manipulating God's greatest creation. He tried everything but was powerless in the face of him. The lust for beauty is also a crucial characteristic of the Renaissance.
I read King Lear by William Shakespeare, which is about a king dividing his kingdom up into two to be distributed to 2 out of his 3 daughters, who end up betraying him, causing him to go mad. He wanders around during a storm and reunites with his 3rd daughter, who had brought an army from France to support her dad against her sisters. Except they lose the battle and everyone dies. Renaissance ideas focused on man at the center of their own universes, where they had to face their own challenges and consequences. These ideas were reflected in the character King Lear, as he had to face the consequences of trusting the wrong daughters for the wrong reasons, leading him to become disrespected as a king and father. In the concepts of good and evil, the Renaissance believed these came from human nature, whereas the Middle Ages thought it originated from God and the devil. A subplot of the story revolves around a character named Edmund, who, like King Lear's daughters, sought to overthrow his father for power. He attempted to mess with his family's orders, which was exactly what defined evil acts, an action that disrupted natural orders, especially society and family. This would make Edmund a villain, a character type that became known through a famous book published during the Renaissance in Italy, Machiavelli's The Prince. During this time, kings were becoming more aware of political theory and the need to study how to rule, in which The Prince suggested rulers to be devious. Machiavellian ideas became synonymous with villainy, the behavior Edmund exhibited as he reprehensibly plotted against his family, turning them against each other, all to gain wealth and power.
I read 1001 Nights. It is a book from Arabian origin talking about the king, Shahryar, and his queen, Shahrazad. He is known to take a bride every night and kill her the next morning. Shahrazad, his queen, tells 1,000 stories for 1,000 days to keep her alive. Every night she tells her king a story to live another night. After 1,000 nights, he falls in love with his queen. Throughout the book, Shahrazad is sacrificing herself but somehow still has the hope to overcome the king's ritual. For instance, Shahrazad states, "How give me in marriage to this king, either I shall die and be a ransom for the daughters of Muslims, or live and be the cause of their deliverance." In this way, she is committing herself to the king, proving that she has no personal rights. In the Renaissance, women were yet not fighting for their rights, and this shows it. She still preserved to make a difference,